It's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink and listen to the story. The zombie hive awakens.
The reinforced steel doors groaned under the strain outside. The moans of the horde had grown louder, more purposeful, a relentless rhythm that resonated in the floor beneath my boots. I crouched beside the operating table, the tape recorder still clutched in my hands, its soft red light blinking steadily. The perfected host, Patient Alpha, I'd start calling it in my mind, sat upright. Its milky eyes followed my every move, calm, deliberate, calculating. The low hum it made was hypnotic, almost soothing in contrast to the chaos outside. I should have been afraid. I was afraid, but I couldn't look away. I didn't know how long I'd been down here, minutes, hours. Time had fractured into the irregular pulses of alarms and distant screams. I had one thought. I had to survive. Sharma's lab coat lay in a crumpled heap on the floor, a stark reminder of what I had done, and what I had survived. Every second I spent here was a compromise between my training and my fear. Every heartbeat was a negotiation with myself. Run, hide, fight, record, survive. I moved cautiously toward the bank of monitors. Data scrolled across the screens, mapping the spread of the parasite throughout the hospital and beyond. Each node represented a human host connected in a pulsing web of black lines. Some nodes were still white, uninfected. Most glowed red, signaling the rapid conversion into the hive. The thought made my stomach turn. Not just the hospital, not just the city. The hive was spreading. I swallowed hard and turned back to the perfected host. Its head tilted slightly, acknowledging me. It wasn't hungry, it wasn't chaotic, it was aware. A plan formed in my mind. Not a good plan, not even a realistic one, but a plan nonetheless. I needed weapons, tools, something to slow them down if they breached the lab. The lab drawers were a mess, overturned in Sharma's experiments and the chaos of the BR. Each. Surgical scalpels, syringes filled with the black parasite fluid, clamps and tubing lay scattered. A fire extinguisher leaned in the corner. Anything could be improvised into a weapon. Anything could be used to survive. I grabbed a scalpel in one hand, a metal clamp in the other, and moved toward the storage cabinets. Every step made me painfully aware of the hum, the constant low vibration of the hive in the walls, in the floors, connecting everything and everyone. The monitors flickered. One of the nodes changed, bright white to glowing red. Another human had been converted. Somewhere upstairs, someone else had been bitten. Someone else was joining the hive. The reinforced doors trembled. The horde was testing them again. I braced myself. And then the humming changed. The perfected host had shifted its rhythm. Its head swiveled, scanning the lab with unnatural precision. It knew me, and I knew it was only a matter of time before it acted. I couldn't stay in one place. Not if the hive was spreading, not if the horde outside was learning. I moved to the service elevator, scanning the hallway for weak points in the steel frame. The elevator panel had been damaged in the initial descent, but there were cables, pulleys, and tools I might be able to manipulate. A plan emerged. I would attempt to reach the upper levels. There had to be survivors, a way to warn anyone left, maybe even a chance to contain the spread. But first, I had to understand the hive. The monitors provided clues. Each pulse of red lines, each pattern of infection, revealed strategies, behaviors. The parasite wasn't mindless. It organized, flanked, coordinated. Each host adapted. Every bite, every scratch, every contact increased efficiency. They were learning from their own mistakes and from the environment. They were evolving in real time. I glanced at the perfected host. Patient Alpha hummed C, lowly crawling off the table. It was smooth, fluid, like a shadow that had been taught to walk. Its white eyes bore into me, but its expression conveyed no malice. The horror wasn't just survival, it was the inevitability. Every person outside, every infected, every scientist, they were part of the Hive now. And the Hive had a singular goal: spread, perfect, dominate. I needed to be faster than it, smarter, more unpredictable. I grabbed the tape recorder, pressed record again. My voice was lower now, steadier despite the terror. "This is Jack Riley. I'm still in the lab. The perfected host is alive, aware, and patient. The Hive is spreading faster than any containment protocol could predict. I don't know how long I can last, but I'm going to try. There is a way to reach the surface, to warn anyone still out there. I have to. This is my record. If anyone survives, know this. They're learning, and they're patient." The humming changed again. The perfected host was moving closer. I swallowed. Survival was no longer just about hiding. It was about outsmarting something that didn't think like a human, but could mimic every human flaw and every human tactic. And the world above? It was already lost. I gripped the scalpel in one hand, the metal clamp in the other. My boots slid across the slick floor as I moved toward the elevator shaft. The hum of the Hive reverberated in the walls. Each pulse felt like it was measuring me, calculating my movements, waiting for the moment to strike. The service elevator was damaged, its cables frayed, the control panel sparking intermittently. I examined the mechanisms quickly, trying to ignore the low, synchronized moans from outside the reinforced lab door. My mind raced. I couldn't take the elevator. Not like this. I had to climb. The ladder bolted along the shaft wall, led down toward a sub-level I hadn't explored. B6. Supplies. Storage. Another possible exit. It wasn't guaranteed, but it was better than waiting here. I started down, 1 foot on each rung, muscles straining as I descended. The hum was louder now, closer. Patient Alpha had left the operating table, its limbs moving with unnerving precision. Every so often it paused, as though watching me. At B6, the storage room was dark, lit only by a flickering emergency bulb. Boxes and crates had toppled over, broken glass, spilled chemicals, and discarded lab equipment littered the floor. My heart pounded, every breath shallow. And then I heard it, scratching from the far corner. A shuffle, soft at first, then growing louder. I raised the scalpel, moving cautiously. A figure emerged, not fully infected, not fully human. Its eyes were milky, but it hesitated. It made a low, gurgling sound, half animal, half human. I realized it was one of the partially infected, the intermediate stage. Its movements were jerky, unpredictable. I froze. One wrong move and it would attack. The creature's head tilted toward me. Then, almost imperceptibly, it backed into the shadows. It was studying me, learning. I exhaled slowly, trying not to make a sound. Every step had to be calculated, every movement observed. I couldn't fight every infected. There were too many, and the Hive was learning. My only chance was to stay one step ahead. I moved along the wall, checking each crate and doorway for supplies, a crowbar, a fire extinguisher, spare gloves, a flashlight. Everything that could become a weapon went into my bag. The hum shifted again, and I knew Patient Alpha had entered B6. The sound of its footsteps, smooth and controlled, echoed behind me. My pulse spiked. I had seconds, wedging the door shut with a broken table leg. The hum grew louder, almost inside my head. I pressed myself into the corner, listening. Patient Alpha passed by, its rhythmical hum continuing, unmoved by the obstacles in its path. I stayed there, breath held, as it moved past. Then, slowly, I inched toward the other exit, the stairwell leading to B3. My first real chance to ascend. Every step was a risk. Every shadow could conceal a partially infected. Every sound might alert the Hive. But I had no choice. Waiting here meant death. As I climbed the stairs, a low, wet thud echoed behind me. I froze. Someone was following. Not Patient Alpha, something slower, more chaotic. Another part of the Hive. I ran. B5 loomed above, the lights flickering. I reached the service elevator doors again. They were still jammed. I ripped at the panel, forcing it open just enough to slip through. Sparks flew, the metal screeching. And then I saw it. Patient Alpha, standing in the hallway, unmoving, watching me. Its hum shifted, a warning, or maybe recognition. I knew then I couldn't outrun it. I had to outthink it. I ducked into a side corridor, kicking over a cart to create noise elsewhere. The perfected host paused, head tilting as if analyzing the deception. Then it moved, slow, deliberate, back toward the sound. My heart pounded, adrenaline surging. I had bought myself a few minutes, enough to reach B3, maybe B2, maybe find another way up, maybe survive. But the hum followed me, patient, inevitable. The Hive was awakening. The stairwell to B3 stank of mildew and copper, the air thick with a dampness that clung to my throat. My flashlight beam cut across the concrete walls, showing jagged claw marks where infected hands had scraped in unison. The hum grew louder as I climbed. Not the single resonance of Patient Alpha anymore. This was Leia. Red! A chorus. The Hive was moving. At B3, the door was half open, its hinges bent inward. I pushed it wider with the crowbar, every nerve in my body screaming at me to turn back. The room beyond was a wide treatment ward, rows of cots overturned, IV bags dripping onto the floor, machines humming on emergency backup power. And in the center, they waited. 5 of them. Partially infected. Their movements weren't as fluid as Alpha's, but they weren't chaotic either. Their bodies twitched in odd rhythms, like puppets adjusting to strings. Their heads lifted in eerie synchronization when I entered. The hum swelled, vibrating in my chest like a tuning fork pressed against bone. My vision blurred for a moment, a sharp spike of nausea twisting through me. I clutched the doorframe, fighting to steady my breathing. They didn't rush me, not yet. They watched, learning. I whispered to myself, "Kile, keep moving. Don't give them time." I swung the crowbar at the nearest overturned cot, sending it crashing into the wall. The sound shattered the silence. 3 of them lunged at once, their movements sharp and insect-like. I ducked back into the stairwell as claws raked across the concrete beside my head. One infected slammed into the doorframe, its shoulder dislocating with a grotesque pop. It didn't scream, didn't even hesitate. The arm dangled uselessly, but the rest of it kept pushing forward, jaws snapping. I rammed the crowbar into its skull, feeling the crunch reverberate up my arms. It dropped, but the others were already closing in. The hum shifted, higher now, sharper, backward, Patient Alpha driving me up the stairs toward B2. My legs burned, lungs on fire. The Hive was converging on me, each floor above alive with movement. Shadows flickered across the emergency lights. Halfway up the next flight, a figure stumbled into view from the landing above. A child. No more than 12. Skin pallid, lips torn and bleeding. Its eyes, milky, unfocused, snapped toward me, and it opened its mouth in a high, keening cry. The sound pierced through the stairwell, and instantly the hum shifted in response, louder, closer. It wasn't just a cry, it was a signal. The hive knew exactly where I was. I froze, every instinct screaming to run, but my legs refused to move. For a split second, the child tilted its head, exactly the way Alpha had done before. Then it lunged, faster than I expected, claws raking down my sleeve. I swung the crowbar in panic. The blow sent the child crashing against the wall, bones cracking like twigs. It collapsed in a heap, twitching, but not dead. Not yet. And that was the mistake. The stairwell filled with sound, dozens of infected pounding upward from below, synchronized footsteps echoing in perfect unison. From above, more shadows descended. I was trapped. The only way out was through B2's ward door, just meters away. I sprinted for it, shoving the broken child aside. Its milky eyes followed me, even as it writhed on the floor, still humming its eerie tune. I slammed through the B2 door and shoved a heavy cart against it. The pounding began immediately, fists and claws hammering the other side. But what stopped my breath was not the noise behind me, it was the silence ahead. Rows of surgical lights flickered to life, illuminating a massive ward filled with cots. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of infected lay strapped down, not dead, not thrashing, waiting. Their chests rose and fell in unison like a single, monstrous lung, and at the far end of the ward, standing tall and still, was patient Alpha. It raised its head slowly, the hum swelled, and every single infected on those cots turned their milky eyes toward me at once. The hive had converged. I stopped dead in the center of the ward, the cart I had shoved against the door rattling under my trembling hands. My breath came in ragged bursts, lungs burning, sweat streaking my face. The rows of cots stretched ahead like a nightmarish cathedral, each body twitching in unison to the same low, resonant hum. And then there was Alpha. Patient Alpha stood at the far end, unnervingly calm. Its head tilted slightly, just as it had when I first saw it in B5. But this time, the hum changed. It wasn't just a sound. It was a vibration in my skull, a pulse in my chest, a presence in my mind. The hive wasn't communicating with voices. It didn't need to. It communicated with thought, with perception. Jack Riley. The thought slid into my consciousness like a shadow, clear, direct, unnatural. I staggered back. What are you? I whispered. I am the evolution. I am order. I am inevitable. I felt my stomach twist, nausea and fear coiling around my spine. The hum of the ward intensified, flowing through the walls, the cots, the floor. The partially infected and the perfected host were connected. Every twitch, every movement, every groan was part of a single rhythm, a single mind. You can resist or you can understand. The hive is logic, it is survival, it is perfection. I gripped the crowbar tighter, knuckles white. I'm not helping you. I won't. Resistance is observed, resistance is anticipated, resistance is irrelevant. The nearest cot twitched violently. The body's eyes opened fully, white and milky. It lunged, but not at me. Its movement was deliberate, circling like a predator testing prey. I realized then that Alpha was showing me patterns. Testing my instincts, my reactions, learning from me. I spun, trying to find an escape route. The ward stretched endlessly. The emergency exit at the far side was too far, and the hum, the connection.
The Hive knew exactly where I was. You will either join or die. Choose, Jack Riley. I staggered backward. My mind raced. Join? What did that even mean? I wasn't infected. I wasn't perfected. I was human. The hum pressed against my thoughts like a tide, forcing me to consider what the Hive could offer. Survival, knowledge, control, but at what cost? And then I saw movement behind me. A partially infected host, jerking awkwardly, hands reaching. My fight instinct kicked in. I swung the crowbar, striking it across the head. It fell, but didn't stop twitching. The Hive adjusted instantly. Another followed, and another. You cannot fight forever, but you can choose. The words reverberated in my mind. I swallowed hard. My lungs burned. I knew the Hive was right. My skills, my weapons, they could only delay the inevitable. But I refused. I would not give myself to this collective mind, this monstrosity. I glanced at Alpha. The perfected host was moving toward me now, slow, deliberate, every step precise. The hum was stronger. My vision blurred under the pressure. I felt my thoughts bending toward it, its logic, its rhythm, its inevitability. I see your fear. I see your instinct. I see your choice. I gritted my teeth, eyes snapping open, heart hammering. Survival wasn't surrender. Survival was strategy. If the Hive wanted my mind, I would resist. I would exploit its patterns. I glanced at the monitors above the cots, wires, power sources, chemical dispensers. Everything could be a weapon. The Hive wasn't just aware of me. It relied on patterns. I would disrupt them. I would fight its logic. The hum pulsed through the floor like a heartbeat. Alpha's head tilted. I knew the confrontation was inevitable, but this time I had a plan. Distraction, improvisation, and leverage. Survival meant more than running. Survival meant making them hesitate. I took a deep breath. One step, one decision. I moved toward the nearest terminal, flipping switches, pulling cables, and preparing traps. The Hive noticed, of course. Its hum shifted, curious, analytical. You think you can outthink us? I ignored it. The stakes were simple: live or become another node in its network. The first shockwave hit moments later. Electrical sparks arced across the ward. The partially infected convulsed, slowed, then froze. Alpha tilted its head. The Hive recalibrated. But I had gained a fraction of time, just enough to make my next move. And I wasn't stopping. The ward was alive, not with humanity, but with something else. A pulsing, coordinated rhythm that seemed to flow through every infected host. Patient Alpha's white eyes followed my every move, its hum a constant vibration in my skull, pressing into my thoughts. I couldn't run forever. I had to act. I scanned the room quickly. Monitors, wiring, chemical dispensers, medical gases. Every tool, every object could become a weapon. Improvisation
was my only chance. I yanked a fire extinguisher off its mount, rolling it toward a tangle of wires near the far wall. Sparks ignited, smoke curling upward, drawing the attention of the partially infected on the cots. The hive's hum changed, confused, analytical. I had bought a few precious seconds. I sprinted toward the stairwell leading up to B2. The partially infected surged toward the smoke, jerky and uncoordinated for the first time. I swung the crowbar at one, and echoed in the ward. Others recoiled instinctively, mimicking the movement, but their coordination faltered without Alpha's immediate attention. The hum twisted in my head, sharp and impatient. Alpha had noticed. I reached the stairwell, hauling a fallen gurney behind me to create a barrier. The clang of metal against concrete seemed deafening, but the hive hesitated, reorienting itself. Every instinct screamed at me to climb faster, but I paused, listening. The hum had fragmented into multiple pulses. Alpha was splitting attention between me and the cots. The partially infected were still learning. They were not perfect. Yet, I ascended the stairs two at a time, muscles burning, lungs screaming. The stairwell echoed with groans, crashes, and the rhythmic pounding of clawed feet on concrete. Every step brought me closer to the surface, and closer to the unknown. At B2, I found another ward. Empty, thankfully, but with evidence of chaos, overturned cots, shattered monitors, blood streaked across the floor. I moved quickly, using the debris to slow any pursuers. The hum pulsed, anticipating my every step. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stay unpredictable. Then came the first real ambush. Two partially infected emerged from a side room, moving with jerky precision. One had a deep gash across its face, black ooze seeping from the wound. I swung the crowbar, striking the first across the skull. It collapsed, but the second grabbed my shoulder, claws digging into my jacket. Pain exploded through my arm. I elbowed it hard, sending it crashing into a wall. I didn't pause. I had to keep moving. The stairwell to B1 loomed ahead. A sliver of light flickered from above, the surface just within reach, or a trap. I sprinted, yanking debris behind me to delay pursuit. The hum followed, patient, calculated. At the top of the stairwell, I saw it, at the Cecil
Irvis elevator doors to B0, slightly ajar. The surface lights beyond flickered. Freedom, or at least a chance at it. I bolted. But patient Alpha was waiting. Not rushing, not chasing, just standing in the doorway to the stairwell, its hum intensified, resonating inside my skull. I froze. Its presence was more than physical, it was mental. Do you think you can escape? I swallowed, chest tight. The hive was everywhere, and yet I had made it this far. Survival wasn't about power, it was about choice, improvisation, and will. I grabbed a length of cable from the floor, yanking it taut and looping it around the stair railing. When Alpha lunged, suddenly, impossibly fast, I yanked. The cable snapped free, striking it across the face. It stumbled, a rare error in the perfected host. I didn't hesitate. I ran through the elevator doors, the cool night air slapping my face like a shock. Sirens and distant screams echoed across the city. I was outside, free, but not safe, not yet. Behind me, the hum faded slightly, replaced by distant, methodical moans. Patient Alpha hadn't followed. Yet. The hive was patient. It would wait, it would learn, and it would come again. I sank against the wall of the hospital, chest heaving, heart hammering. I was alive.
For now. But the city was gone, the Hive was awake, and the nightmare had hit me like a wall as I stumbled out of the hospital's service exit. Neon streetlights flickered overhead, casting fractured reflections on the wet asphalt. The city was eerily quiet, but the silence carried its own menace, interrupted only by distant sirens, shattered glass, and occasional low, resonant moans that made my blood run cold. The streets were littered with abandoned cars, shopping carts and debris. No civilians, no police, no order, only shadows moving in the corners of my vision. I gripped the scalpel tightly, keeping the crowbar close. Every step was calculated, every sound a potential threat. I had no plan beyond survival, no map, no communications, just instinct and fear. And then I saw them. Groups of partially infected roamed the streets, their jerky, twitching movements synchronized like predators rehearsing choreography. They were drawn to one another, converging in patterns that suggested intelligence or something like it. The hum I had felt underground was present here too, subtle but insistent, threading through the night air. I stayed in the shadows, hugging the walls of buildings, using alleys as cover. I had to find survivors, or at least a safe location. But the city itself had become a labyrinth, each block a trap. Every streetlight revealed another set of glowing white eyes. A sudden crash to my left made me spin. A man, or what had been a man, lurched into the street. His mouth hung open, black ooze dripping from his lips. He froze, eyes milky, then turned as if sensing me. I held my breath. The man didn't move forward. Instead, he backed into a pile of rubble, his arms twitching in sharp, staccato motions. The hum shifted. The Hive was adapting to me, learning from my presence. I exhaled silently, edging around him. Survival depended on being unpredictable, on being invisible. I moved toward the riverfront. Ping the open water might offer some barrier. The streets twisted unnaturally, abandoned cars forming barricades, the remnants of traffic jams turned into chaos. Graffiti screamed warnings I didn't fully understand, hastily scrawled symbols and pleas. Stay inside, don't open doors. As I rounded a corner, I glimpsed the first real scale of the outbreak. A city bus, long derailed and overturned, served as a feeding ground. Partially infected hosts circled it, dragging others toward the wreckage. Their moans synchronized into a low, rhythmic chant. It was the same hum I had heard underground, stronger, more coherent. The Hive had extended beyond the hospital. The entire city was becoming a single, pulsing organism. I pressed myself against a brick wall, heart hammering. This was no longer about escaping one building. This was survival in a city that was alive, and every instinct screamed that humans were already losing. I needed allies, I needed weapons, I needed information, and I needed to stay one step ahead of the Hive. A sudden flash of movement caught my eye. Across the street, a small group of survivors emerged from a shadowed alley. One carried a makeshift spear, another held a backpack and a flashlight. Their eyes met mine briefly, filled with a mixture of relief and suspicion. I didn't know if I could trust them, but staying alone wasn't an option. The Hive learned quickly. Being alone made me predictable. I stepped forward slowly. And then the hum changed. Patient Alpha, or something like it, was nearby. Somewhere in the streets it watched, waiting. The Hive was patient, adaptive, inevitable. I swallowed hard and raised my hand in greeting. Survival, I realized, wasn't just about fighting. It was about learning, adapting, chessboard. and I had just stepped onto it. We moved cautiously through the shattered streets, the small group of survivors trailing behind me. Their whispered conversations were sharp and clipped, instructions, warnings, and fragments of fear. I introduced myself as Jack Riley, paramedic, survivor, fighter. They didn't ask questions. At this point, survival required no introductions. The hum followed us. Subtle at first, almost imperceptible among the distant sirens, but it grew stronger, pressing against our minds. I could feel it probing, analyzing, predicting. "This way," a woman in the group, mid-30s, wearing a leather jacket and carrying a crowbar, muttered, leading us down a side alley toward what looked like an abandoned warehouse. "It's not much, but it's defensible, for now." We slipped inside. The door creaked, dust falling from rusted hinges. Inside, the air was musty, but it was quiet. Too quiet. I checked my surroundings, noting exit points, barricades, potential weapons. The survivors were tense, but alert. Suddenly, the warehouse shuddered with a distant, guttural thud. I froze. "Alpha," I whispered. The Hive had found us. From the roof, a shadow moved, tall, fluid, impossible. Patient Alpha, its milky eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, and the hum rolled over us in waves. The partially infected had not followed, but the perfect host was here, observing, calculating, waiting. I turned to the survivors. "We can't fight it head-on. We need to be unpredictable." They nodded. Improvisation was all we had. I instructed them to block entrances, set traps with broken furniture, and prepare Molotov cocktails from abandoned supplies. Time was short. Alpha would strike. Then it did. The warehouse walls vibrated as Alpha leapt through a broken window with impossible speed, landing in the center of the open floor. The hum intensified, filling my mind, testing our reactions. The partially infected inside the warehouse immediately responded, moving with jerky precision toward the nearest humans. I swung the crowbar, knocking one back. Another swung a steel pipe. Chaos erupted, but it was contained. Alpha didn't charge recklessly. It studied us, learning our movements, anticipating mistakes. Every moment was a test. I realized then that fighting the Hive wasn't about brute force, it was about control, making them react to you, forcing errors. I grabbed a chain hanging from the ceiling, yanking it down to swing and topple a row of crates. The partially infected collided with them, momentarily breaking formation. Alpha paused, its hum changing, almost curious. I signaled the survivors. "Now, push toward the back exit. We move as one." They obeyed. We ran in formation, breaking through the rear doors into the night. Screams and groans followed us, the hum pulsing, but we gained distance. Outside, the city stretched like a fractured nightmare. Fires burned in overturned vehicles. The hum was everywhere, but Alpha had not pursued directly. It waited, calculated, patient. We reached a ruined subway entrance and ducked inside, panting, battered, alive. For now, I looked at the survivors, haggard, exhausted, yet determined. This wasn't just survival, this was war, and Alpha and the Hive were the enemy. Patient, intelligent, unyielding. And I was alive. For the first time in hours, I allowed myself a thought. We might just have a chance. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams.